Hey, welcome to the Pleasure Points podcast. I'm your host, James Rohr. I'm excited that you're here. Today's episode, I get the pleasure of interviewing Inessa Freylekhman. She is a Feng Shui practitioner, and she's been a friend and a colleague for the last, 8 years or so. And I just love the way that she sees the world. She is an expert at the placement of things, and she's very intuitive. She's a licensed family and marriage counselor as well. She's got a whole bag of tricks. We had an awesome conversation talking about dating, relationships, the energy and things, your stuff, layouts of like where to put your change to make more money, all of the things. So I had a great time chatting with her, and I hope that you guys will enjoy it as well. You can check her work out at fengshuifromtheheart.com. And you can always check out my stuff at invitinginlove.com. You can follow me on Instagram at James E. Rohr. Let's do this thing. Enjoy the show.
Hi.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, like I was telling you before you got here, all morning, Jennifer has been like freaking out about like, we got to organize and we got to put the things away. And she's like, the Nessa's going to be here and she's going to like see all the things. And I love that you commented on the picture above the bed.
She has a single picture of a single woman over her bed.
A picture of a single woman, right? It's like, I think that might actually be like a Clint picture there. And I love that you said that, because in my coaching program, one of the things that I talk about so much is like in the first week, I have them like take a look at your house, in particular your artwork, and especially the artwork in your bedroom. It's like a lot of times these like single women, they have what I would consider to be like pretty lonely pictures in their room. And I don't even see that picture anymore when I go in there. But when Jennifer and I first started hanging out, she had this picture above her bed that was this kind of like grayish yellow picture of a dock. Like this lonely dock going out to like a lake.
I know the picture.
Yeah. And it's just like so sad looking. And I was just like, that is the saddest looking picture, especially to have above a bed in your bedroom. Sure. I was like, Jen, you gotta swap that out.
And that was the one that she swapped it out for, the single woman. That's funny. Well, it didn't deter her from, from landing you and getting married. Right.
But at least it was like, it was a little more sensual.
Yeah, essentially, for sure.
And, for a while, she was like, she liked to say that she was engaged to herself, so we were dating, but she got a moonstone and she put it on her wedding ring on the ring finger. And she like spent, maybe a year or so, like just walking around and feeling like I'm engaged to myself. Like I'm choosing myself, and like, yes, I'm with Jim, but I'm really like, I'm choosing me above all else, which I think was great. And it helped us to like, become who we are. But I love that you called out the picture there above the bed.
Well, that is very common for women and men to have a lot of single images in the house, not just single women, but even like a single Buddha or like a picture of one leaf or one elephant. And all these things, they filter into your psyche. And so they can hold your single status in place or hold a certain, and maybe that's what the person wants. But if they want to be in a relationship, then I think you got to start thinking about changing that. Yeah. And creating more harmony and bringing in those symbols that, reflect what you truly want, which is partnership.
To condition the subconscious, right? Just to get used to seeing yourself or to seeing couples and to remind yourself that this isn't a solitary journey. Yeah. One of my first clients in the program, she got to the module and she sent me this message, and she was like, so don't judge me, but I have a lot of pictures of cemeteries, of like statues in the cemetery.
That was the style of art she liked.
They were, like she said it. I was like, whoa, this isn't good. And she listens to the podcast, so hey. But they were really nice. They were like nicely done, but I was just like, yeah, that's all gotta go. Maybe you keep one, but the rest of them gotta go.
Super depressing.
Yeah. And so then she was at some farmer's market or like some like local art fair market. And she was looking and talking to this artist, and she was like, yeah, I'm in this guy's program, and he's telling me to get a picture of a couple. And the woman was like, I heard the same thing. And I started making this picture. It was a silhouette of a couple looking out over a cityscape. And she goes, I started making this particular picture because I was inviting in love into my life. And she said, by the time I finished the picture, I'd met the man that I'm now married to.
I love that.
And so I was like, please tell me you bought that picture, like the energy that's in there. And she was like, no, I didn't really like it. And
Does she paint?
The artist had made it.
No, I know, but does your client, does she paint?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She likes to play golf. Yeah.
So what did she do?
I think she found some other picture of like dancers or something.
I think what's less common, I mean, that's more common and it's more obvious when you have the single person. But what people don't realize is that also having pictures of your friends and family in your bedroom is also another detractor.
Is that right?
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, what is the bedroom? The bedroom is the hub for love.
Right.
It's the place for romance and rest. And it's the one area that's sacred for the couple to come together, right? And to create intimacy. So when you have pictures of friends and family in the bedroom, it pulls your energy out. It pulls you into like those relationships.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you don't really want to have kids in your bed. Also, that's a place where you make love. Look, why would you want to have friends and family looking at your bed? Like, why? I never get that. Like, why would people even put that? I never understand that.
Yeah.
I understand if someone, look, there are times and places to do that. For example, if someone loses a partner and they want to surround themselves with their photo because it helps them in the grieving process.
Mm-hmm. So could you paint the picture of like, what is an ideal sort of feng shui bedroom? Like, what's that look like?
Well, let's start with like just the mattress. If you're coming out of a relationship or you've been out of one for a long time and you're still sleeping on the mattress from that old relationship, that has to go. Do you know why?
Why is that?
Because we spend a third of our life in bed and we imprint onto our mattress. All the energy gets absorbed into that mattress. So all the emotions and whatever was going on stays in that mattress. So that's really important to let that go.
I remember it might have been Brad.
Oh yeah, I did it clearing for him. I cleared his mattress.
He was like, Inessa came over and she thwapped my bed.
And then his ex-girlfriend came back and I told him she would.
No way.
Yeah, I said the moment I clear her out of your mattress, she's going to call you.
No, that's amazing.
because when you clear that energy out of the mattress, it also like helps clear it out of you. Yeah. So he'd already released her, but then there was still a layer left.
Sure.
He needed to like really let go.
Yeah.
And people, because everything's energy, she probably felt like something had shifted, or maybe she remembered him or wanted to call him for whatever reason.
Right.
Yeah, so you have to get rid of the mattress.
So were you hitting it?
Yeah, it's called bed thwacking. That's a term coined by Karen Kingston. You read her book, remember? That's when I first met you. You told me you read her book.
Yeah, it's Clear Your Closet.
Clear it with feng shui. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to clear all that energy out of the mattress. Can I tell you how many people have have done that one thing and they either sleep better or they attract in like somebody after clearing their mattress, or just letting it go,
just getting rid of it altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's an emotional signature in that mattress. It's like in there.
Yeah. Jen was reading something the other day she was looking at like how much skin cells we lose, and it's like we lose like, I think they said if your mattress is 10 years old, there's like
mites or some. There's like
there's like 10 pounds of your dead skin in your mattress or something. And I was like, oh, that's a lot of your ex that's in our bed. And she was like, nope, I got rid of that bed when I moved here.
She knew. She knew.
All right, so we've cleared out the mattress, and then what else with the setup? Like you like the two nightstands on either side,
and then you want to bring in. The 2 nightstands. You want to have a headboard because the headboard symbolizes security in the relationship. And you want to have 2 nightstands because you don't want to perpetuate a single person's room or a one night stand syndrome with the one night stand.
Yeah.
And you want to have pictures of like pairs and couples and things that symbolize love and flowers and like happiness. The 2 colors you do not want in your bedroom is gray because gray is the color for indecision and blue is the color for divorce.
Oh, no way.
You don't want to have grays and blue. Blue is also the color for water, so it puts out the fire. You want to have the fire kindled in the bedroom, right, for the romance and the passion. Those are really bad colors to have. You don't want to have fountains in your bedroom. You don't want to have water elements. But then you don't want to overdose with too much fire either, so you don't want to paint it like a fire red.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's very ugly anyways. But you want to have warm colors. You can have purples. You can have oranges. You can have... The walls should be like the walls here, which are more or less skin tone walls. Mm-hmm. And then just warming it up with like even that burgundy and that pillow. That's a nice color for in the pillow behind you. Like there's there's a little bit of burgundy color. So warm colors. And you want to get rid of the clutter. So what is clutter? So anything that distracts you from the relationship. What distracts people from connecting? Televisions.
Right.
Lots of books in the bedroom.
Uh-huh.
Anything that would pull you out or like be a reason to escape the relationship.
Nice.
Because what happens after 6 years? People don't want to deal with each other usually, so they turn on the television.
Right.
But if you don't have a TV, then you're kind of forced to talk to one another. And then I always say keep the bedroom. I don't know if you've ever tried this, but like keeping the bedroom a drama-free zone, like declaring that to be the one room in the house where you don't hash it out. You guys have that rule?
I've definitely said that in like all of my relationships.
Does it work?
No, of course not. It's like, and it drives me crazy. And I don't like to say it's a men and a woman thing, but like I know a lot of guys that complain about it where they're like, we're falling asleep. And then it's like, you get that
She wants to process.
Like, hey, can we talk about it? And you're just like, yeah, okay. I mean, okay. Like,
But it conditions.
Like, are we going to get out of bed and like go into the other room to talk about it? It's like, no, so you kind of like hash it out. But I've always hated that. I've always had a huge aversion to any kind of serious conversation in bed. Yeah.
Well, you're also very energy sensitive. And I think that energy stays there. If you have that over and over again, then it's like you're recalibrating yourself for like fighting or for processing.
Mm-hmm.
And processes can lead to more intimacy. But sometimes they don't.
Right.
Sometimes you can't resolve it in one night.
It's in your bed.
And then it's in the bed.
Then we got to get thwacked.
Then you got to get thwacked or just, yeah.
My first exposure, I mean, we looked at a little bit of Feng Shui when I was in Chinese medicine school, but it's not talked about, I don't think, nearly as much as it should be. But the first time that I like noticeably felt it was when I was dating the woman I would marry the first time. And we moved into this giant loft in North Bay Village. And this place was huge, which I didn't like. I don't like lofts anyway, like just one huge room. And this place had like floor to ceiling windows of the bay. I mean, it was beautiful. It was the whole building was in foreclosure. This was like in 2010 or something. And so we were able to rent it for
I think I know the building, very industrial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that building.
It's like Space, I think was what it's called.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And so we got this place for like half of the rent. But I hated it from when we walked in. But there was like one part of it that was very clear, like the bed goes here. It's just the way they had this long window that was kind of like where a headboard would be, or just above a headboard, and that opened up also to the water. And so we put the bed there because it's like that's where it should go. And so we're there, and like we had a normal, like a healthy, what I consider a healthy sex life, and then as soon as we moved into that place, the sex stopped.
Wow.
I mean, it was like almost immediate.
And there was a window behind the head?
So there was a window behind the headboard,
Yeah.
but I was laying on the bed one day thinking like, why aren't we having sex? And I looked up and I noticed that the ceiling was exposed to the loft. And so there was an air conditioning pipe that literally split the bed in half.
A divorcing pipe.
And so I was like, I was just like, sometimes you know, right?
You felt it.
Oh, that's not good.
It was obvious. It was right there.
And so this was before I had met you, and there was I'd met some other Feng Shui practitioner in Miami here, and I started to tell her the story. I said, hey, do you think this could be a thing? And she's like, yeah, I'll just come to your house and we'll take a look. And she walked in and she was like,
wow.
The water, bad. And she's like, that pipe, terrible.
Yeah.
She's like, are you willing to move the bed? I was like, is it going to help me get laid? And she's like, yes. I was like, then we'll move it right now.
And did it work?
She was like, if you needed to, she's like, you could hang a crystal.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, let's just move the bed. And so I moved the bed to like some other part. And yeah, it was immediate. Like that day, she came home and it was just like, yeah, let's do it. And it was like, great.
Right.
Yeah, but it was like that kind of like there's that profound impact. And as a kid, I used to move stuff around my bedroom. I was always reorganizing my bedroom. But that one with the pipe splitting the bed. And it happened when I was in New York too. When I took over that office, my acupuncture office in New York. It had exposed ceilings. And the way that the acupuncturist that I took over for had the room set up, she had the treatment table, and there was the same thing, this pipe that was running right above. And it was like, it was going to cut someone's energetically like, horizontally. And I was thinking back to my first experience, and I was like, this has to change. And so I was able to move it in this other direction.
Yeah, these subtle energies really impact us.
Makes a huge difference, right?
I mean, not everyone can feel it like you can. You have the education and the intuition, but it still impacts us even if you can't feel it.
Yeah. What are some of the, like, so when you're single and available for any guys that are out there listening, right? And so if you, like, when you're dating guys and you end up back at their place, is it like hard for you to take off the Feng Shui
Very
practitioner
hard.
hat and not to just like start moving shit around?
Well, I'll never move shit around, but I know so much about people. I can read them through their spaces.
Yeah.
I know what they're still holding on to. I know where their issues are.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And I also know what they're like. I also know, because what you reveal about yourself in your space is equally as important as what you choose to conceal. So the things that are not out also tell me about that person. So I do learn a lot about a person by looking through their house. And I mean, as of late, I don't know when the last time anyways, but I remember back when I was living in LA, I went into this guy's house and I was like, I love your art. And he told me that his ex-girlfriend made all of the art.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm like, he's not finished there in that relationship.
Right.
So that was a huge red flag. Clearly, I didn't move forward, but it's very helpful to me to actually go into their spaces.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. So do you have any advice for single women that are, maybe ending up in some dudes' places?
Do I have advice? Yeah. I would say to ask the guys where the stuff comes from. Like, what's the history of some of those objects?
Yeah.
And, is that person still, do they still have lingering feelings towards someone from the past that could show up as still sleeping on a bed from that marriage? That could show up as, having pictures from things they purchased together on a trip. But guys don't always know the direct impact that has on them.
Right.
I mean, women are a little bit more sensitive to that.
Sure.
But guys don't always get it.
Right.
But it's just interesting to see if, what they're still holding on to and if they're still emotionally entangled with that person. Because a lot of times when those objects live in the space, there usually is some sort of an emotional entanglement. Maybe they're not sleeping with that person, but they could be getting their emotional needs met from conversations. And that is not an available person.
Right.
So I'm not saying that's like a complete deal breaker, but that's just information gathering.
Right, for sure. It's data.
It's data, right?
Yeah.
It's data. You have that in your work shop. Okay,
it's data. Yeah.
And like something comes up for me right now is like the relationship with the mother and the father. Like how present is the mother in the space? For example, did she design or decorate the house? Like I've seen guys where the mom is the one that, she totally decorated the whole the space. So that tells you something about a guy.
Would you be concerned if a guy's space is like a little too immaculate? I would be like, what woman had an imprint here? Like, you have way too much food in your refrigerator for a single guy.
Maybe that's his mother. But these are not like bad or good. It's just information.
Things to observe. Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
What else? There's a lot of stuff, actually. But right now I'm kind of blinking a little bit. Funny. You could find out how available he is for even having a relationship. Like like if he has a lot of stereotypically guy stuff in his house, like pictures of cars and pictures of all of his awards and all over the place. Right. If it's too overly masculine, I'd be curious to find out like where he is with really settling down and getting married. Because he might say one thing too, like I'm ready to find the one, but then his home is anchoring him in a bachelor pad.
Sure. It's a total man cave everywhere.
It's like a man cave. Yeah, everywhere. So I think it does tell you a lot, doesn't it?
I bet women would just love to have you like available.
That would be fun. That'd be so much fun. That should be a show. That could be a show. Just to go in and that's so much fun. I like that.
Yeah, like instead of like getting sent, shirtless selfies, it's like send me a picture of your artwork, would you?
Well, right. But you know what else? Something like less obvious. I just recently, just a few minutes ago, I said gray is a color for indecision. Yeah. So this one woman and her husband. Not her husband, her boyfriend, they came in for couples therapy, and I asked them to show me a picture of the house, and everything was gray. Like the wall, the furniture, everything. And he couldn't really commit to her 100%. He always had his foot out the door.
Wow.
So that's another indicator that something is off. But there's so many clues in a space. These days, I don't end up in an apartment until a law later.
Sure. Yeah.
It has to be a whole courtship.
Right.
That was like long in my 20s. Do you have that in your program where like you talk about how important it is to be friends and to get to know the person?
Yeah, basically like, don't fuck on the first date kind of thing.
Just the first date?
It's usually the advice. Well, I mean, it's like if you like someone and you think someone's got the potential, it's just a suggestion. But, typically the longer you wait, the more you'll be able to, allow there to be like real feelings that develop instead of it just
especially
being
for
like,
women, because we lose our objectivity the moment we have sex. We release oxytocin and we get attached.
Yeah, and for guys, it's like, they're like, I've conquered it. I've been there. I've done that.
And
Like,
then you don't
I
want to put the work in anymore.
Totally. And it's harder for him to be kind of like wooed.
As invested, right?
Yeah.
There's actually a really good book called Fuck Him. It talks about that. It's nice. The title's horrible, but the book is genius.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it talks about how important it is for women to take their time in really getting to know a person, and men too, and making sure that person, is worthy of their love. Because the moment we go to bed, we assume a level of closeness that's not real.
It's not real. Totally. Especially nowadays. And like, especially with people that are dealing with anxiety, that anxious attachment, it's like the longer you can wait, the better, and I typically encourage them also to see multiple people at once if they have the bandwidth for it, just to keep them from putting all of their anxious eggs in one basket, just to be able to
I think there's
a
term for that, circular dating.
Yeah.
I hate that term. It's a terrible term.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
But the concept of that, where that comes from, it's the whole idea of like the bee flying around, like picking up honey from different flowers. Like the bee becomes very attractive. So when you're not putting all your energy into one person, you are less available and you are more desirable to the opposite sex.
Interesting.
And it takes the pressure off of making that person your one. And then you can really give yourself the time to figure out who that one is. And then it creates a space for that guy to show up and to prove himself to you.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I don't like that idea of like being less available, then that creates like more tension, and he's got.
Well, it can be a game. It can be a game.
But that idea,
but it has to be a real
like,
thing. Yeah.
Don't be like super stage 5 clinger, on the one guy that you like. And if you're texting a couple of different guys and you're not always readily available, whenever this guy's like, "Hey, I'm free," and you're like, "Great, I am too."
For a woman, that's a biological. But women that have anxious attachment styles, like they can't even help themselves sometimes because that oxytocin makes them feel so close to that person, and it's not their fault, but they have to remind themselves, this is just my biology speaking. This is there's nothing real, substantial here.
Right.
So I'm all for like long, like taking your time and
totally.
Yeah. Prolonging the dating process.
Yeah. It's smart for sure. One of the things that I talk a lot about is that, typically what we have attraction to is like what's familiar. And so like if what's familiar to you is guys that treat you like shit, then you're going to be attracted. Like it's like your radar is going to know that this guy's not going to treat you very well. But then we get triggered with all of that, like, oh, it's so familiar, and it's like,
so we think that it's
knowing,
right,
and so part of I think a big part of the work in just creating something different in your life, but particularly when it comes to a partner, is you have to like reprogram yourself with what's familiar to you, So it's like, I guess it'd be, if we talked back to Feng Shui, like someone who's just used to clutter all the time, like clutter is going to be familiar to you. Like
you develop an immunity to it.
Yeah.
And then when you meet someone that has those qualities, you sense familiarity and you mistake that for closeness and love, but it's actually something toxic that you're just used to.
Some old shit you're still.
But some of those things are, as they're like, they're very unconscious as well, because they're based in our relationship with our primary caregivers.
Right.
And those things are the harder ones to.
They can be a little stickier.
But
I do think though that if someone is like, if they are absolutely committed in the moment and they go through this process of really reconditioning themselves, and it starts, like, what are you watching? What are you consuming? What are you surrounded by? What are the stories you're telling yourself? And if they really commit to dialing in and changing what's familiar to them, that they can do it. They can at least, some of that stuff might come up later, but to navigate the dating scene, I believe that stuff can definitely be changed.
Well, if they are willing to have the insight and to ask themselves the right questions.
Right.
Yeah. Like, what is the thing that I'm attracted to? Does it remind me of something and someone? Or is it, what's the attraction based on? Is it based on, that's it. What is it based on? Well, why am I even attracted to this person? If it's just like a feeling, usually those feelings are not the right feelings in the beginning. Yeah.
And it's like, one of the things that I see is like a classic sign that this might be happening is when people say, I meet guys that on paper seem great. they have all the qualities I'm looking for, but when I'm with them, I don't have any chemistry. You know, it's like, how many of those dates can you go on before you start wondering, like, well, what's that all about?
Yeah, why don't they have the chemistry with someone that's
Because they're not
great?
like what is familiar to them at their core, like in the deeper thing, is someone who treats them like shit.
Neglect, right? Neglect, abandonment. So
all the things. Yeah.
So then they're going to
a guy
be
who shows up who's like, hey, I'm available and like you're a queen and I want to honor you and like treat you well and we're going to have like a 50-50 thing and it's going to be great. They're just like, no, I'm not interested. He's too short. He's too fat. He's too tall. He's too good looking for me. Like whatever the excuse is, you know.
So how do you reprogram your women clients? What do you have them do?
Well, I don't do it. I just give them some suggestions. You know, they have to do it. It's not. I'm not like waving a clock at them. But you know, it's all of these things. It's kind of like it's taking a look at, you know, again, like what is the stuff that you're consuming? You know, are you consuming these stories?
What's getting reinforced, right?
Yeah.
I'm so fascinated by the physical space because I think the physical space does reinforce because it's a living affirmation, right? You're looking, even if you're not directly staring at your walls, whatever's being projected back at you from your walls is feeding into your unconscious mind. So then we get into you can use the walls to feed in positive images, feed in positive intentions back at you. Yeah, it's also interesting.
Yeah, you know, so we'll talk about things like, you know, we talk a lot about communication. You know, like, are you communicating in a way that is an invitation for closeness? Or are you communicating in a way that comes from this anxiety? You know, I had a call with one of my clients this morning and, you know, she was talking about the breakup that she had with this guy. And he got laid off from work. And so her story is that she feels like she's used to walking on eggshells, that her instinct is that if she somehow does something that she perceives as wrong or not right, people are going to freak out and yell at her or leave her. Right? And so this guy, like, he lost his job and she said, you know, is there anything that you need, you know, or how can I support you? She might've said. And he was like, well, he's like a dude. He's like, nothing, you know, whatever. And then so what we talked about was like, that question I think is great, right? How can I support you? It's lovely, beautiful. But then she went to, do you want some time alone? Do you want me to come over? Do you need like maybe a break? Do you need to, you know, maybe I won't reach out to you.
She went to rescue mode.
Well, like all of her anxiety of just like, you know, and then what I was saying was like, you know, it shifted the focus from like, how can I support you? Or like, what kind of support do you need? To like making it about her and the relationship. You know, it's like all of a sudden it just like, it changed the focus from that heart-centered place of like wanting this person to thrive to all of a sudden now it's your anxiety coming in instead of just being able to be like, oh yeah, how can I support you? And like, and if he says there's nothing, or like if he says I'm upset with you, to be able to say like, okay, I can handle that, you know, because I know that I'm good, you know, that I'm still worthy of love and affection and being treated kind, even if you're unable to do that right now.
Yeah,
you know,
that's an
and then like
job.
being able to like, sort of, you know, process all of those things. And so like it's some of that stuff, you know, so we look at the communication and obviously like what are the stories that you're telling yourself and all of that, you know. And for her in this case, it's like one of the things is, you know, I've had to remind her a bunch of times where it's like, you know, the guy was an asshole. Like as great as he might have been, he was also an asshole. And so like, let's just call it what it is, right? And sometimes like you can be great and you might also sometimes not be so great, and that's okay, you know, and that the great relationships are going to be able to like ride through that together. We're not going to, you know, project our need to be perfect in order, you know, for everything to be just so. Sometimes we are great and sometimes we're not so
what
great.
happened with the guy? Did it end?
Yeah, that was before. That was part of why she started working with me.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like, you know, it's just lingered too long, you know.
Well, a high quality man and will take the time.
Yeah,
He
totally.
just will.
Yeah, for sure. And like he'll handle the anxiety.
Yeah.
And like if you like, you don't have to say everything perfect. I think it's great to be like, how can I show up? And this is where we do a lot of the work in, is ultimately is like the relationship that has to be chosen is like the one with yourself. You know, we were talking before the show, the new masterclass that I'm doing is about like, you know, choosing whether to stay or to go and like how to navigate that. You know, and one of the main shifts there is like you have to choose yourself. Like you're trying to decide whether to stay or leave a relationship, but like let's make sure that you're absolutely committed to you first.
Right.
And from that place, making that decision to stay or to go is so much healthier.
You know, I find that because I'm also a marriage family therapist. I don't know if you know that, right, about me? Okay. So I find that sometimes people, I track to sometimes couples. I just had one a few days ago where they don't understand that the issues that they're experiencing in the relationship have their roots. They're older. They're pre-relationship. They don't understand that those issues were always alive within them. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's such an important piece, that people need to understand that whatever is showing up or getting triggered, that was already here before this person showed up, and therefore I need to choose to have that relationship with myself to resolve that within me. But a lot of people don't even know that piece, you know?
Yeah.
And they're still very much caught up in, I can find someone that's going to make me happy or that's going to complete me.
Right.
So I'm surprised that people don't know that. I would think that now with so much literature out there on, you know, on self-love and like the Hendricks and imago therapy, that people would understand
right.
that we're projecting our unconscious unmet needs onto our partners. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this couple I had the other day, I decided to just be direct, and I said, you know, I told him that at the root of this is his inadequacy. Mm-hmm. He doesn't feel like he's enough.
Yeah. And
that was before she showed up. Yeah. And the root of her issue was that she was afraid of engulfment. Mm. And they started arguing with me. Yeah, he says, well, I don't agree because, you know, the relationship is such and such. And I'm like, no, I get that.
Yeah.
These two aren't, you know, they're not mutually exclusive. It's just that you already had the inadequacy before she showed up.
Yeah.
So that's something that you need to work on within yourself. Mm-hmm. And it was very hard for him to hear that because, you know, he felt like it was being brought up by the relationship. So she could do something, change something out here, which maybe your partner can change something, but then the issue will still live on within you. You have to still deal with that somehow.
Right. Totally. Yeah, for sure.
You know, so I've been reading Michael Mirdad's book on creating successful relationships, and he says that there's karmic relationships and then there's gifting relationships. And the gifting ones are the ones where both people are doing that deeper work and they understand the hierarchy of relationships, which is 1, with God, with higher power, 2, with self, and 3, with your partner. And when you have your priorities right, then you're always... You know, you go to the source first, and then you go to yourself to work things out, and then you go to your partner. So if you haven't resolved it on those 2 levels, then you try to resolve it with your partner.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
To me, that sounds beautiful. You know, one of the things that when I started thinking about this stuff, like that I learned from the divorce that like really kind of like humbled me and still does, was how adamant I was that I was right. You know, and that she was wrong about all the things. And I used to say some shit that was like, I used to say to her, I said, you know, we could take any argument to a jury of our peers and I would win unanimously. They wouldn't even have to leave the room to deliberate because it's so obvious that I'm right. You know, and of course,
you're right.
Like I'm telling my friends, you know, and I'm like, oh, this is the shit. And I'm like pleading the case. And of course they're like, yeah, dude, you're totally right. Like, makes sense. But like, holy crap. Like, what was the cost? Like connection, cost opportunities of being in the moment, and it cost my freedom and her enjoyment, and like ultimately cost the marriage, you know. I mean, there's other reasons too, but like when I think back to how would I want to be different, and now, you know, Jennifer and I, like, how am I committing to being different? It's like recognizing like, no, being in flow, being in alignment, you know, with my higher calling, with my best self, with me as, you know, best I can. Like, am I fulfilling my purpose, which is, you know, at this moment is like to be present, to be kind, to bring a good mood, you know, and then to be able to have that manifest in our relationship. Like, that's the priority.
That's
and
beautiful.
Nowhere in there is about being right.
That's so great.
You know, and we know that, like, you know, we've heard the saying, like, you can be right or you can be happy, you know, but it's like, it wasn't until I lived it, and it's tricky in relation. That's why I don't do any I don't do any relationship counseling, because like that shit is a sticky, like, leave that to professionals like you.
No, it's so hard. But it's very hard for me too. Please, like I'm learning from my clients constantly. Always. Yeah. It's very hard. But yeah, good. So you're able to, like, do you think that was a defense mechanism before? Oh,
for sure. I mean, I was freaked out. I was mortified that that I was in a situation that was not going to be as forever and sort of rosy and fairy tale as I thought it was going to be.
But let me ask you a question, because, like, You work with a lot of single people, and so do I. And I find that some people come in with relationship issues with partners that have issues that are like narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're dealing with a person like that, I wonder if some of these like rules still apply. Because if you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you make peace beyond reason your number one value,
mm-hmm.
you're going to get eaten up alive. So I think you have to be with a healthy person to be able to use a lot of these healthy psychological and spiritual principles. If you're with a person that's deeply toxic, you have to ask yourself, why am I even choosing this person, staying with this person?
Right.
And because you can't convince a narcissist of any position.
Yeah, I don't think trying to convince a partner of anything is a good idea.
No, I don't think so either. But with narcissists in particular, like, there's gaslighting and there's a lot of manipulation.
Sure.
So they're less likely to see your point of view than a person that's a little bit healthier. Like you wouldn't even find yourself having to get stuck on a position if you're with a person that can practice conscious listening, for example.
Yeah.
So you have to also ask yourself why, you know what I mean? Because these are very specific things. Like maybe you were with a person that didn't have the capacity to see your perspective. So all of that got lit up in you, that like, like that indignation.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Which is an indication which is already an indication that's not the right person.
Right.
Too.
Right.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I don't think I would do it differently. I'm not going to say that my it's like, because when I looked at it, I did the best that I could, to show up as honest as I could and to try to see things as clearly as possible. And I don't think it would have changed something. And for me, the thing that kind of caught me by surprise was that when we were dating, she struck me as somebody who was like willing to do the work, who was like willing to show up and like take accountability and like own all of her stuff and the things and to have some of these kind of more nuanced or difficult conversations. And after we got married and when things were difficult, like that didn't happen. And I can look back now and say that like, okay, well, I probably wasn't creating like a great environment for that conversation to happen. Okay. There's an interesting book called The Lion and the Unicorn. Have you read this book? So basically what this guy, he's a therapist. And what he talks about is that in relationships, there's a lion and a unicorn. And so the lion is somebody who, we might sort of say just as kind of anxious attachment style, but the lion is somebody who wants to address things head on and wants like immediate resolution. So if there's an issue or conflict, they want to talk about it and they're just like, yeah, I am too. It's like, let's hammer it out and like, let's solve it. And the unicorn wants to like, if faced with any of that stuff, they want to run away. They're the avoidant types. So they want to get away. They want to be safe. And they might be comfortable leaving things like unresolved for a while, and one of the things that he said that I just thought was hysterical was if I remember right, was his like, the lion will be accused by the unicorn of yelling all the time. And the lion's going to be like, I'm not yelling. I'm just like passionate and I'm talking about these things. But the unicorn, because they're like tend to be so frightened about conflict and that stuff, they just like, so yeah, that's what happened all the time it was just like, she's like, stop yelling at me. And I'm like, I'm not yelling. Like, but like, this is a thing that like needs to be resolved, and so I think the more that I kind of leaned in, the more unsafe she felt, but it was like, that was like the part that kind of broke down. And for me, that was like the number one thing in the relationship. And what I look for in a partner is like, because everyone's shit is going to come up. Like you can't avoid it, So it's like, is this person willing to do the work and to do that and to be there, and again, if I had been a little different, maybe she would have, and maybe it would be different. But like the way we did kind of what we did. And I was glad that, that it's over in the sense of like, okay, like we aren't getting any resolution with any of these things. So it's like, how much longer are we going to keep going like that?
So how long were you, okay, so after you guys divorced, after you guys ended it, Like, did you have to make some internal tweaks after that?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So you were able to get so you kind of got your own growth, even though you weren't able to get it with her, you were able to get that piece for yourself afterwards.
Yeah. And I needed to, I felt, this might sound terrible, but like the analogy that I kept feeling when I was married there was like, we're in a sinking ship, and I'm trying to plug holes here. And I feel like there's just more holes being shot in the boat. And I was like, I can't sustain this. And that's where I was like, you know what? If we get divorced, like that's going to be like heart wrenching. And I just read this thing that people say that divorce is the second most stressful time in their life, or the stressful thing that can happen, second only to losing a spouse, like to death. And, and the divorce was like incredibly intense and stressful. And, we kind of had a more amicable one, and it was still really intense. We have a kid. But I remember thinking at the time, like, even if I never meet anybody, even if I'm never in a relationship ever again, at least I'll be in a boat that I can like control, that there's no more holes that are going to be shot in the boat. You know what I mean? And it was like, there was a huge financial component to that, which was triggering all of the things. Right? Most divorces, from what I understand, are, finance related, which my ex-father-in-law used to always joke. He goes, why do you guys argue about something you don't even have?
That's funny.
I love that. And so it was, it was intense. And so then I was able to take a step back, and like there's something that happens there, right? Where it's like when it just becomes like, oh, I'm going to be with this person forever, where there's like a freshness that can happen, where you start seeing like the illusion of being with somebody forever is broken.
What was your illusion about just being with her forever, or just having you thought once you get married,
just to be
forever?
In that loop, just to be like in that like dynamic of like us,
the us,
and and so I took some time, and I was like, I had to come to grips with my own behavior in the sense of like, I didn't create a great space for her to thrive, but I also did.
Well, good for you,
but I also did. I mean, it was like it's both, right? So I'll celebrate what I did do.
Sure, yeah, but good for you for taking the time to look at those parts of yourself and take ownership, so that you don't carry them into your next relationship.
It's been a process, and like Jen's been here for a lot of this stuff, but the number one thing that I did, that I was just like, I work with this with the singles, is like, what is the thing that you really want, like in a partner? And it's not about how tall or short they are or the money they make. Like, focus on the value. Like, what is the number one or the number two or like the top three values that you care about? And like, let's lead with that, And for me, it was just like, oh, kindness has got to be like the thing. Like, I don't care if she's like smart, if she's dumb, like if she's beautiful, like, none of that took the priority as much as like, I want somebody who's kind, and that we can come back to kindness together. Cause my ex, like we didn't do that. We didn't come back to kindness, as quickly as I would have liked, or ever in some cases, in some fights. And so to be able to have kindness as the compass is really immensely valuable. And it was funny when Jen and I, at some point she was doing some branding exercise for her stuff. And she sent out this questionnaire to her clients, and one of the questions was like, what are the 2 or 3 words you would use to describe me? And like 95% of the responses came back with kindness as the first one. And she was like, I don't consider myself kind. She was, that's not a word I would use to describe myself.
Okay.
But it's like, it doesn't matter. But that's how, that's how you occur to us.
Maybe because it's so natural, it's so much a part of her. She doesn't think of that.
Right. Yeah. And I love that, and that's been a huge thing.
I think that's important to look at. Like, that's a very good question. It's like, well, how do you want to experience yourself in the relationship? How do you want to feel in that relationship?
Yeah.
Like, what's your highest value? What is it? And it's usually like, what is it that you want to feel inside of yourself when you're with the other person? Like, feeling nurtured, feeling gotten, received.
Yeah, seen,
felt, heard. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, so as part of that, I was like, oh shit. Okay. I was like, if that's what I want to attract, I've got to be that.
For yourself.
Yeah. I got to be kinder to myself, and I got to be kinder like to everyone around me. Like, I called my ex at one point. I just spoke from my heart. I apologized, and and that was great, right? It was like created this really nice bridge for that, and it was just like, I'd have put it in the forefront of my mind to like lead with kindness, for others and also for myself, and some days are better than others. But I like having that kind of clear compass heading. It just makes it easier, instead of like all these other things that people think about.
Yeah, that's the reference point.
Yeah. I keep thinking about when you were talking about the stuff, and asking about where stuff came from. Because I was telling the story to the client this morning. We were talking about like trusting your feelings and the intuitions and stuff. And, it's like you can have an impulse, right? Like this woman, this client in particular, her read, she tends to be really anxious. And I was like, so your read on things is usually great. Like if a guy's pulling away, like you're usually like your sense of that is probably really accurate. If someone's not, if they're carrying themselves differently or they're emanating a different frequency, you're probably sensing that. I said, the breakdown happens when you start making that about you, but like pay attention to the initial impulse, right? This is very good, but then watch out with like all of a sudden it being like, what have I done wrong? Why are they pulling away from me? Like, how could I do things differently? I said, but just live in that thing. And I was telling this story about when Jen and I were going through some of her stuff. This was a while ago. She had a bunch of hats in the closet and she was going through the hats. And I was like, oh, that's a nice hat. I was like, where'd you get that from? Not trying to pry. I was just curious, And she said, I don't remember. She said some bullshit answer. And it just like, she's like, oh, I got it like wherever. And it like nothing about that felt right. It was like, it was as if someone like took a chainsaw or like a jagged knife, like was all rusty and just like slashed me, And I was like, that doesn't feel right. And we were in a good mood and stuff. And so I looked at her and I was like, really? It's like, is that your final answer on that? You want to try that again? Because nothing that you just said felt like the truth to me. And
would it have mattered had she told you the truth? Were you being torn because she wasn't being honest, or because you knew that it came from?
I didn't know where it came from.
Oh, but
I didn't have a sense
you just
of that.
felt
But
the
I was just
answer
like
wasn't
feeling
authentic.
her. And I was just like, that doesn't feel right. And I'm looking at her, right? And I see this kind of shift in her body language and her energy. And I was just like, and she knows my stuff. She's, and she just looked at me and she's like, you're an asshole. She's like, did you just not feel everything? And sure enough, like some dude gave it to her, right? And it was like,
it's tough. I feel everything too. I understand. But are you okay with her having stuff from exes? How do you feel about
I was just like, whatever. I was like, what I'm not okay with is you lying about it, like, especially if I asked
that part. Yeah, because she didn't want to hurt your feelings, but
I totally get it. I mean, we laugh.
Right. But what's interesting? Like, do you think there's people that can still hold on to tons of stuff from their exes and find themselves happily in love with the right person?
Well, you tell me. You're the Feng Shui expert.
I only know one person like that. That's why I'm asking. Because of all the couples that I've met, I only know one person that has gifts from her exes, like art that they made her on her walls.
Yeah.
And she's in a super beloved love relationship. And I don't know anyone else. I've had so many clients where we've had to release things from their house and then they bring in the right guy. Or like, oh, you're with a guy now, but you still have presents from your ex, like in your closet, like jewelry and things that you're holding on to. And then when you release that, you realize that you were still holding on to resentment, and then you release that resentment, then you're closer to your partner. So like I've only seen that with one person. I think it's rare.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, well, because people have to be. You have to be honest with yourself, right? About like what's the energy that's in the thing.
Yeah, what's in the thing and what's underlying that.
Yep.
The attachment to that thing. Why was that still in my house? I had one item that was lingering for years. It was a Coach handbag that was given to me by this guy that I dated for 9 years. He was the man that put me on my Feng Shui path.
Well, bless him. Yeah.
Bless him. And I loved him. He was like my best friend, and he was like more like a brother and a mentor than a lover, but we were like so close.
Yeah.
And he gave me that Coach handbag like 5 years or 6 years into the relationship. And he said, here, this handbag is a symbol of you moving out of a bohemian lifestyle and into more of a serious professional woman. And his mother, she was always like, oh, Inessa's the hee ha ha girl. She doesn't take life serious. And so I always felt like there was that bag was loaded with like his family's opinions on me, that I wasn't like professional. I wasn't serious enough, but it was expensive. It was the most expensive, thing I had in my closet. So after we ended it, that thing, it hung out in my closet. It sat in my closet for years and years. And I even planned to take it to Guatemala with me on a writing retreat. I was going to give it to somebody there, and I couldn't part with it.
Yeah.
And I had to look at, like, why am I still all these years later, like, I'm teaching classes on decluttering, and I'm talking about the Coach handbag in every class. I'm like, I can't get rid of my Coach handbag. I don't use it.
Yeah.
And I felt like I couldn't, it was almost like I felt the value in it for me was that he was such an important person in my life. Like, he was the one that led me to the Shui.
Yeah.
You know, he was the one that helped me graduate from being a bohemian to being more professional. But then I also felt like I had all this guilt around how I was never professional enough. I would never be serious enough. I would never be taken serious by the people that I really needed for them to take me serious. Yeah. And I had to resolve that piece within myself and move into a deeper acceptance before I actually can get rid of that handbag. And then I had one of my students come in and I said, you take this and you give it to somebody because I can't get rid of it. But it was a whole process with understanding, like, that I had to just love and accept myself as I was and stop trying, because I felt like that was helping me be more serious, remind me that, help me become more professional, help me remind me that, you know, I needed to, you know, spend more time in planning, because I'm really much a person that builds things as I fly as well. Like, I build my plane as I fly, and I was judging that part of myself. And, like, finally I got to a place where I was like, you know what, this is just who I am. So sometimes it's not always simple to get rid of stuff. Like, there's a whole story behind it, and we have to go through our whole process of, you know, putting these pieces together and understanding why we're holding on to stuff and letting it go, and healing it and resolving it before we can let it go.
Do you have your clients, like, journal about some of their things?
Gestalt sometimes, talk to the items, like giving it a voice, like let it speak. What would it say? You know, journaling.
Yeah. What's your feeling about Marie Kondo and all of her stuff? I'm with
it.
I'm
with her.
Like, does this bring you joy in that whole process?
Yeah, like, I tell people, yes, the same thing. Like, do you love it? Do you love it? Do you use it? Mm-hmm. Do you love it? Do you use it?
Yeah.
Then if not, then lose it.
Yeah.
But then there's the subtle energy of stuff too, because, you know, stuff, you can feel there's energetics on items. Like, I don't have a lot of stuff, just like you don't have a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. But, like, I'm thinking right now, like, are there pieces in my house that I like and don't love? Sure.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's those pieces too. But there's nothing in my place that I absolutely hate, for example. But not everybody's attuned to feeling those energies from their belongings. I think that's where the experts come in. We come in and we tell them, I remember I came into this guy's house, this client that had, and there was this huge armoire in his living room, and I said, what's up with that armoire? It has a very weird energy. Like, I don't feel like it fits into this movie set, like this house, right? Like, it's not a part of your narrative. It should be somewhere else. He goes, oh, that belonged to my grandfather. Well, a little bit of context, this gentleman, he was a recovering alcoholic. And it turned out his grandfather, who had inherited that armoire from, was a gambler. And so I said, okay. So I opened up the armoire and I found all of my clients' unpaid bills. He would stuff his unpaid bills, and he was dealing with like a lot of spending issues at this point, because his alcoholism, it kind of morphed into, what is it called when you can't stop, like an addiction with spending,
like compulsion,
but with spending, So I said, you don't even love this piece. I said, you're not putting anything beautiful in it. It's housing all of your unpaid bills. And he really couldn't part with it because it was expensive. He felt like it belonged to his grandfather, even though he loved it. Yeah. He didn't want to let it go. And then years and years later, he found me in Miami. This was in LA. I'd met him. He said, it took me all these years to realize why I was holding on to that piece. And it turns out that when I was a little boy, my parents had a lot of conflict, and I was very scrawny. Mm-hmm. And I told myself that one day, I was gonna become the man, and I was gonna protect my mom, and I was gonna be like the hero. And so he was this very big, built up, beefy guy. He said, and so what happened was that I overcompensated for being scrawny with being this big guy, and I was holding on to the piece because I was still holding on to like the family load for the family. Like I was holding on to, that pattern of addiction and I didn't want anybody else to take it. I wanted to be the one that carried it for everybody else. So when I realized that I didn't need that piece anymore, I could let it go. But he had to go through a whole journey of remembering, like, oh, I made that agreement with myself when I was a little boy because I couldn't protect my mom. And so, I've been carrying this on my back for the whole family.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's
it's a lot of things.
A lot of things.
What's your take on like digital pictures? Like I had a girlfriend who insisted that I delete pictures from my like iPhoto library of
I don't
past
think they care. I don't think.
relationships.
Well, okay, but that's a whole. There's two questions here because.
Yeah, I wasn't like scrolling through them and like looking at them, but
the
they
fact
were there.
that she brought it up, there's two issues here.
Right.
One is like that. That's the issue is that she brought it up.
Yeah.
But in terms of like so if we're looking at energy, digital pictures I do not believe they contain as much energy as like a physical picture does.
Sure.
Right?
I agree. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Like if they had points, like data points, they wouldn't have as much, right?
Yeah.
As much
They
as
had
a physical
literally
object.
like a scale, like an emotional weight to it.
Yeah, an emotional weight to it. Like there's not an imprint on a digital photo.
Right.
But the fact that she brought it up, that's interesting.
Yeah, that was like a whole other thing. Yeah, I mean, she just had a lot of insecurity, and she was like, "I deleted all of my things," and I was just like,
Look,
well,
I don't personally.
I didn't ask
but you
to
like
do that.
you have you have a kid, so you're going to hold on to pictures of you and your ex for the
Sure.
child.
Right.
But I don't want to have. Well, what's funny when I look back and like I found some file where I found pictures of me and one of my exes, and I was like, what do I do with this? Because it's buried somewhere on my computer. Should I delete it? And I deleted all the ones that I didn't like of me.
Yeah.
But I kept like one or two.
Sure.
I think one or two are okay.
Yeah.
But I don't want to have a bunch of photos from my old relationships anyways.
Yeah. Right. I think a lot of it is like, what's the story that you have around the stuff, right? So with the handbag, like we talked about, like the handbag or whatever. Jen had, it's too bad she's not here. She might want to do like a rebuttal, have her own, have her own interview with you. But, we were going to the thrift store to drop a bunch of stuff off. And I noticed that she was like, we're just both getting our stuff together. And she was like getting really emotional about some stuff, like not emotional, but like her energy was like kind of weird, and she was, I don't know, things were just kind of like a little bit, more tense. Right. And I was like, whatever, like it's stressful. Like we were moving and all the things. And then we go to the thrift store and we drop the bags off and she gets back in the car and she just like takes this like huge exhale, like this big breath. And I was just like, what did we just drop off? Wow. And she had some jewelry that like some old partner had given her, and it had been there and buried in the closet and whatever, and and then she finally like got rid of it. And it was like a big thing for her. Yeah, it's a huge thing.
It's
and
huge.
like we had been together for a while, and I didn't, I wasn't like, oh, my spidey senses are you've got some shit in the closet that has to be gotten rid of.
But you can feel the stuff too.
Sometimes for sure. My favorite story, people, the listeners on the podcast have heard it before, but I had this bar of soap that my ex-wife put when we were still married. She put the bar of soap in the shower. And so I was in the shower and I pick up the bar of soap, and immediately I feel like there's 3 nuns in the shower with me, and they're like scrubbing me and like, we're going to wipe the sin off of you. And it was like really intense. I was like looking at this bar of soap. I'm like, what are you? And when I got out of the shower, I was telling them what was happening. Her sister and her mom were in town. And they start all laughing. And the mom says, she was, well, we got that bar of soap at a farmer's market yesterday,
No
and it was
way.
handmade by nuns.
That's crazy.
Crazy, right? Like
You're psychic.
That was like next level. I mean,
That's
I don't
next
like,
level crazy
that
psychic.
was a whole other thing. Like that doesn't happen very often to me, but but it happens. My teacher tells a story about his teacher.
I have a story. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, he tells a story about how like he would bring him food, and so my teacher's like his wife would she would cook the food and then he would deliver it to his teacher, and he brought the food over to his teacher, and his teacher took one bite and said, "You son of a bitch." He was like, "How angry were you when you were handling this food and bringing it over here?" He's like, "I can taste your anger in the food." Guy didn't even cook it, right? And so then, my teacher has his reaction and all the things. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like I'm really sensitive to vintage things. So like, I typically don't like to go into the thrift stores and like vintage stuff. And like, I remember somebody once was like, "Oh, check out this like vintage ring that I got." And I like held it and I was just like,
yeah.
I think you should just leave it where it lays.
Yeah.
Maybe you could smudge it, or like, maybe Inessa can thwack it for you. But yeah, I don't know. What's your story?
No, well, my story is that sometimes you don't like, so I had a neighbor that that liked me, and he brought me a present for Christmas, and I felt through my whole entire body like this deep, deep knowing that that was not meant for me. That was meant for someone else, and it didn't work out with that one. And it was so like 100%. And my mom was at my house. She was visiting from Seattle. My sister was from Chicago. And they were all like, oh, he's so nice.
Yeah.
He's so sweet.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know how to explain to them because they're not as open to all this stuff. But I knew in my gut, like, I was like, oh, that's so nice of you. Thanks. And I gave that person to my sister.
Yeah.
But I just knew that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Because it had this energy on it that the intention on it was for someone else.
Did you ask him about it? Did you call him out on it?
I don't want to.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
He's my friend.
Yeah.
Maybe I can now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now, now that
and,
possibility is it's gone. We've kind of ruled it out.
Yeah.
Now we're just hanging out now, just riding bikes together.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna say something to him. Like,
yeah, just ask him.
I will.
Like, oh, it's so nice, but like, who did you really buy it for?
Yeah, right. Because we have to reality test our intuition
For sure.
and that'll be good for me to do that too, just to make sure 100%.
Super helpful. It's one of the things that I love about my relationship so far with Jen is that like when a couple of these things have come up, I've been able to ask her about it, and she like her like honesty about it has just really helped to settle what used to be some anxiety for me. You know, where it's like now I think back to stuff and it's like, was I anxious or was I just actually feeling what was going on?
Well, you know, you read Attached, right? Because this is where you're getting all.
Right.
Yeah. So like if that stuff is in the space with a person that has an avoidant attachment style, then you would, I guess what it's called protest behavior. Mm-hmm. But that stuff could really be there. Like there could be really something in that space in between you that isn't kosher.
Right.
Right. Like that person could be triangulating another person emotionally. That, you know, that person could have just walked out of a situation where she received a present from someone and you're picking up on it in that subtle energy level. Mm-hmm. But then still on the onus is still on us to manage our feelings. Nevertheless,
For sure.
That's what I learned out about after all, because I also have an anxious attachment style. So what I've learned out of all these relationships that I've had is that even if it's true, even if my intuition is 100% right, dead on, I need to still master the reactivity part of it.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
You
so
know,
how do you do that?
Oh, I'm not in a relationship. No,
Yeah.
How do I do that? No, I do that by time out. Like I have to get very quiet. I have to actually leave the space. Like I'll communicate, like I have to leave the space right now and go into process around like, okay, well, what's really going on for me right now?
Yeah.
How young is this part of me that's reacting? Oh, she's 4. And what is the need that needs to get met right now? I need to know that I'm going to be loved and held no matter what. So then I'll give that to myself.
Yeah.
I'll love and hold myself. And then I'll be like, okay, so what is it that I need to communicate? I need to ask this person if what I'm picking up on is accurate. But if I do it in a loaded way, like in the past, like if I do it in that aggressive way, which is what I used to do in the past.
Sure. Right.
Because I can see right through things and people, right?
Yeah.
I get a very bad response usually.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they're under attack.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
You know, and then there's a battle of wills.
Yeah.
Not my last serious relationship was 3.5 years, but the last like 3 very short-lived relationships were with men that weren't really working on themselves. And what ends up happening is like I start tuning in and feeling all this weird stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like what's one guy I was seeing for a couple of months. I felt something. I opened the Facebook page and I see this full-on conversation he's having with this other woman.
Right.
And, you know, I said, it's right there. You know, I see it. And he's like, oh, you're overreacting. But I also could intuit like what was going to come after the relationship ended.
Yeah.
I ended the relationship just because there was too much, there was a lack of like, he wasn't able to really see his own actions clearly. Like he wasn't able to just talk about it and own up to it.
Yeah.
And after I ended it, he started dating that other woman. So like it was already in the air.
Sure.
I think when you have precognition, but here's my piece with you, Jim, because like I have a lot of precognition, which if I was with a partner that was equally as tuned in as I am and tapped in, it could work because then we can talk about things, we could, you know, process things, and that person could take responsibility for the things that I was bringing forward. But if a person doesn't have insight into themselves and you bring things up, they're going to go on the defense.
Sure.
Even if you're loving and kind and compassionate.
Yeah,
possibly.
they can.
Yeah,
they can. It's certainly a possibility.
So,
sure. Yeah, it's tricky, you know.
It's
and I just
tricky.
feel
It's very
so.
tricky.
I mean, it's part of why we're married now, is 'cause I just feel so blessed, with her. But it's also taken, it's taken some hard times. It's taken times where I felt some stuff that she didn't necessarily want to feel or be felt at the moment.
Yeah.
The beginning of it was like, it was intense, and I'd feel her pull away and I'd be like, what? I was like, if you need some space, like just do it, and she, no, and so like we had some rocky moments, which is a blessing now because it helped us get a ton of clarity. But one of these, I think I've said this on the podcast before, but one of the moments was like a real turning point for me was, we were dating. She was here in Florida. I was up in New York. So there's a lot of space, right? And the mind can fill that space with a lot of stories. And she had hosted, I think, an oils class here. And she was telling me, I was like, well, who was there? And she said these things. And she said this guy's name. And immediately, like, it didn't feel good. It's kind of not as bad as that hat story, but like, it didn't feel quite right. But I was like, look, dude, like, you're away. Like, don't get jealous. It's fine. Like, are you confident in your relationship with her? Like, yeah, I feel good. I trust her and all this stuff. But I still didn't feel good. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to sit with that, right? And this is like the thing that I'm been cultivating that has been incredibly helpful and that I just think is like the way through this stuff. As you said, you take some space. And I just sat with it. Well, that was like, let's say that was a Tuesday. Well, I was here on the Thursday in town for the weekend. And I get here to the house and we're sitting on the couch. And I just feel this guy's energy here, right? Like, I don't even remember what his name was. I feel the energy, right? And then it's like, and then it'll go away. And then I feel it pinged again, like a radar, or even maybe someone like now we have a text message, but that's what energetically, that's what it feels like. It feels like someone's coming in here and they're like just checking it out, right? And it would go and then he'd come back. And I was like, huh. And I was like, all right, well, am I just jealous here? Am I insecure? Like, what's going on? And I just sat with it, And then the next day, it was the same thing where I'd feel this guy's thing, right? And then finally, I just said to her, we weren't in a heightened state at all. I think we might have been at the Standard or something, and we were just hanging out. And I said, hey, like, can I talk to you for a minute? And I said, this gets a little weird for me. I was like, because I'm sensitive, but I know that sometimes I get a little anxious, and and I was like, so I'm having a hard time kind of discerning this, but let me just share with you what my experience has been. And I just explained to her what I just explained to you. And she starts laughing and, kind of shaking her head. And she's like, God damn. She's like, yeah, she's like, that guy. She goes, I realized that when, I invited him to the class that like, I think he got the wrong message and I talked about you, but like, he's been like sending me text messages and, I've handled it, I've taken care of it. But, she goes, I didn't tell you because like I get hit on a lot and it's like, she's not bragging. It's just something that happens, And she's like, but, it's crazy that you're feeling that. But I've taken care of it. You can read all the things, like it's totally fine. I'm not hiding anything. I love you and all the things, But for me, that was like, I love that because one, I was patient. Two, I was really kind with myself.
Yeah.
3, I had the courage to have the conversation.
Yeah.
4, she received that conversation
really well.
Awesomely.
Yeah.
And, 5, it's like it just brought us even closer together.
Yeah.
And 6, like she knows that she can't fuck around on me because I do everything. Hear that, baby? She's here. Yeah.
So ultimately, like, I think if you have those 3 steps down, like you can't control the 4th one, which is how the other person receives it, how it lands.
Right.
But that's also an indicator. If you've done the first 3 steps and you've taken care of it, you've loved yourself, and you're delivering it in a compassionate way, in loving, compassionate way to yourself and to the other person, and that person reacts, that's also information about,
it's important data,
whether or not that person is able to hold space for you and for your feelings. So.
Totally. And if they react, if they were to react and get a little defensive or clam up or freak out or lash out or whatever, even that I would be like, and that's happened to us too. I felt some stuff and, she would just be like, no, yeah, and then later it's like, actually, that was like, that was
but it's good
your feelings.
But it's good you have a later. Right. It's good that you have a later. At least we had
the later, right? So
yes.
So I would even be like, if you like the person, like I would even be compassionate with that initial reaction because
that's good.
Especially for the intuitives, like, it's like we're sensing some stuff that's invisible that people oftentimes don't want to have be seen. And to call it out, especially if like people lash out with it, like that's super shitty. I'll typically always ask like, hey, I'm feeling some things. Would you like some feedback?
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, your grandmother's right here and she's not happy with the choices you're making right now. That's kind of shitty, And so asking for that kind of permission and if people react, they react. But then it's like, what happens afterward, and especially if they're willing to come back and have a more kind of level-headed conversation once they've been sort of.
And it's scary for people sometimes when you are that intuitive and you're able to, to read their mind or pick up on things that, maybe it's not a big deal for them.
Right.
And then bringing that up might be a little scary. It's like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to have any privacy in here?
Yeah, that's for sure what Jen had. That's for sure what she had when we first started dating,
Yeah.
And it was the thing. And she, she even said, she was just like, I've never been felt before. She goes, I've had relationships where I would tell somebody, like, I'm really sad. And 2 minutes later, they would look at me and be like, you look really happy. And she'd be like, did you not hear what I just said? And she's like, and now you are feeling like everything without me even saying. And sometimes you might be feeling stuff before she's even like aware of it.
Well, you pick up on it before.
And like, listen, I think dating and being in a relationship with me, it's got to be like, I don't envy it. I do my best, but like, that's got to be intense.
No, that's what I always say. I have compassion for people that I date because I can read their mind. I can pick up on things before they show up, and it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of it is like to like kind of keep that beginner mind, just be like, well, I don't really know, but like, I kind of do know, but I don't really know for sure. So it's like, well, let's just see what happens.
But we do know because we feel it in our body. Right. It's beyond thought. It's like it shows up as a physical reaction in the body, and then you're like, what is this? Like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, and discerning that can be from discerning anxiety from intuition can get really sticky.
Right. Is it intuition, or is it like triggering that anxiety? Is the anxiety triggering some older wound in me that isn't feeling safe right now?
Yeah. And like what I did like to work on with my clients is like, if your quote unquote intuition is always leading you to the same place that your anxiety leads you, maybe it's not your intuition. Like, are you also feeling like somebody reaching out to you before the phone rings? Are you thinking of someone and they call you the next day? Like, that's what I would consider like some version of intuition.
Yeah.
But if your intuition is always telling you that like someone's going to break up with you, or they're narcissists, or they're shitty, or whatever, it's like, maybe that's more your anxiety that's, that's coming in the form of intuition.
Yeah, because intuition isn't usually loaded with so much emotion.
Right. It's just
more like a knowing. It's like a knowing. Yeah, so this is the thing.
Like when Jen pulls the hat down and she says what she says, and it's like, that doesn't feel right.
Right. Yeah. You're not making it good or bad, or just like, you know something's off there.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like when you walk in a room and you're like the Armour story where you're just like,
I can tune
that
in.
Doesn't, like, what is that?
Something's
like,
off with that piece. Something's going on here.
So what does my little podcast room tell you here?
I think it's warm and it's homey and it's cute and...
It's an indecisive couch.
Yeah. No, I like it.
All right. You can tell me the truth when we stop recording.
No, really.
Yeah. Oh, so the picture here, the Hilma Klint.
Oh yeah, the Hilma Klint.
Yeah. So the Guggenheim in New York had a big exhibit of hers. Apparently she was like a mystic, and she was doing a bunch of like mystical things and going into seances and stuff. And then she would have these visions, and she made these amazing paintings.
That's amazing.
But what she said was that she goes, the people aren't ready for this. They're not ready for this yet. So I don't want any of my art to be displayed for like 40 years. Wow. So she made these amazing paintings, and she put them in a barn or like in a warehouse or something. And so she was like, you have to wait 40 years after my death, I think. And one of the crazy things was that she described the kind of, I think she called it a temple, where she wanted her art to be displayed. And she talked about this like spiral staircase going up and the art that was going to be shown that way. And it was like, she was describing the Guggenheim.
Wow.
I mean, it's like, because the Guggenheim has this like spiral thing that goes up. And
she
it
was
so
like, tapped in.
It was crazy. It's
that
crazy.
Woman, wow.
Her artwork was amazing. I love that one.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. So do you guys use this mainly as like a little study, a little office area?
Yeah, I'll do my phone calls there at the stand-up desk. And then,
do you work at that desk?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the only issue with the room, is that you have your back to the door.
Did I have my back? Oh,
yeah, because because the door is the mouth of opportunities. It's the mouth of energy, the mouth of chi.
Okay.
And so when you have your back to the door, it's like you're missing things. You've got things out of sight.
Interesting.
And you want to position something on that desk so you can see what's behind you, to create like a rearview mirror perspective.
Oh, put a mirror up there?
Yeah, you need to see what's behind you. It's important.
And what about the cactus on the desk? I read somewhere that something about like cactuses on desks like help to ward off like.
Those are cute. That's a very cute cactus. That's
My son
is a
picked them
friendly
up.
cactus, a little red one.
Yeah, yeah.
Cactus is actually they have a little bit of an aggressive energy, so they help protect your reputation.
Ah, nice. And then
What is
part of
that?
my concern was having the couch, like when the doors open, it's at the end of the hallway.
Yeah,
But so it's just sort of like I don't normally sit there, certainly with the door
it's a
open.
line of fire
Because it just kind of feels like the energy
Yeah.
comes in. I thought maybe I should put a mirror up behind that
to
too.
bounce it.
Yeah, but I was like, I don't
But you
know.
have this protecting it.
that
That slows it down.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the plant between the
That's
door.
new. I put that here yesterday.
It's a money tree.
Yeah, it feels really nice there.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
No, this is a very friendly room. It's very cozy. Super
Good.
cozy.
Isn't there a place where you should put like your coins, like an abundance corner? Or like a
Yes,
money
in
corner?
in the feng shui that I practice, there is.
Yeah.
It's the money corner, which is the far left-hand corner of the house and each room. So it would be this corner of this room.
Ah.
That's the money area.
All right. I have a Mr. Potato Head there full of change.
Well, is he in that corner?
Yeah, he's over there now.
Well, that's your wisdom and knowledge corner where the books are.
Yeah.
So you're making money off of your knowledge.
Oh, all right.
That's not a bad thing either.
Perfect. I like it.
You make money off of what you know.
I know nothing.
And then you
so
have the
great.
map in the family. Interesting. You have a map in the family area. So is your family spread out around the world?
Around the
People
country,
around
yeah.
the country?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Oh, this is intense.
And then, what is that your degree?
Yeah.
So that's in the money area.
Perfect.
This is your love. This is relationships, but this is any kind of relationship. So that you got you and your son here in the relationship area, which is good. This is creativity and children. You've got your
Dude,
guitar.
this room is dope.
You've got the guitar, and then guess where that picture is?
Where's
in the
that?
spiritual helpers section.
No way.
Yes.
Oh, dude.
So the only thing that's missing is this area, which is fame and reputation.
Okay.
So it's about you getting out there, you're being known, you being seen, you making a name for yourself. So
Okay.
what you need here, you need something that's red, right here, a little red pillow.
Red pillow.
Is this red?
Done.
Here.
Is that going to work? All right, perfect. Done.
Yes,
All right,
done.
there it is. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. Great.
And then maybe like you work under that fan. So do you usually sit there? So the fan, even though it's not on, it still has a slicing energy about it.
Ooh.
So you need to offset the slicing energy by taking red nail polish or red paint and dotting the back of the blades.
Okay.
And setting the intention that it mitigates the slicing energy. So it's not depleting you while you're...
What about if I were to hang a crystal down?
That
from
also,
the
same thing.
That would work.
It's just that it's, with the dots, you can't see them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the crystal
Oh,
will work.
that's so interesting.
It's not a grape. It's not great. It's a little bit of oppressive too.
Yeah, I don't normally sit.
But
I guess I sit here when I'm doing interviews. I'm still trying to figure out the best sort of place to sit for that. I don't want to sit there on the couch.
It's nice that you
'cause
let your interviewees like sit here because this is more of the command position.
Great. Perfect.
It puts them at ease sitting here because they can see the door.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you still have your back to the door, but
Right. Sort of. It's kind of.
no, yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
I think the room
Oh,
feels
this is
good.
great. Yeah. So you saw.
Oh, interesting. You have like baseball. Did you want to? So that baseball photo
Yeah.
is in your career and life purpose area.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's a commemorative picture of when the Cubs finally won the World Series, and my mom gave that to us.
Okay.
Oh, victory, right?
Victory, yeah.
Finally, the headline says "at last."
At last.
It's like, oh, fucking finally! I'm pulling my shit together. I finally got a feng shui room.
And what are the? Is that a chime?
Yeah,
That's really cool.
It's a rattle with
Ooh.
the deer antlers.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what Jen feels about it too. She goes, "What the fuck is that?"
What is that thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I had it over there. and
You're a
Jen-
shaman, right?
I mean, some people call me that. I'm just a guy. Just a guy. Yeah. So and then we'll wrap up here in a second.
Okay.
But you saw Nina, right? You did like a
We did like a little.
You did a thing, and I heard
an
you brought her to
Instagram.
tears. You just identified her stuff, and it was really powerful for her. Yeah.
She was super open and vulnerable, and it was all live.
Yeah, amazing.
I thought that was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, that she was able to go there.
Yeah, it was profound for her. She reached out to us and was telling us how great it was, and that's the work that you do. So thank you so much for coming on here.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.
How can people find you if they want to, book sessions or whatever?
Feng
or just
Shui
reach out?
from the heart.
Feng Shui from the heart. FENGSHUI
from the heart. That's my feng shui website. And then illuminatedcounseling.com is my therapy
how
site.
Nice. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Illuminated Counseling. Well, everyone, be sure to check her out. She's just a delight. I've been known you for what? It's been a long time.
You were the
right?
one that got me into the
ranch.
Canyon
Right?
Ranch.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you again
Thank
so
you.
much for coming on here. And Everyone out there, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.